We're going to move on to agenda item 9. This is the audit committee report. Member Hall is with us online. Member Hall, would you like to, you're with us online still, would you like to take this, or can the leadership assist you?
I can take it, and the leadership can also assist, because somebody's got to make the most of there. I can't read it while I'm driving, but I will say, you know, we're entering into some uncharted waters here. We've never been before as a board, and I don't know if somebody wants to make the motion first. We can make the motion first, and then have C.A. Davis and Kevin Johns kind of speak to that. Give some. What they're going to do is they're going to give some high-level context to the situation here, and just trying to be as, I know this is on the public record, but still trying to be as discreet as possible when it comes to this situation. So if you'd like, we can have C.A. Davis and Kevin Johns give some context, then we can make the motion or the recommendations to the board.
Thank you, Member Hall. Why don't I'll be fine to make the motion that came out of committee, and then we'll open it up. C.A. Davis, if you would like to, I'll make the motion. If you want to just kind of share some background with that, as Vice Chair Hall has mentioned here, and then we will open it up for discussion or amendments or any other motions. The motion that came out of committee is that the board consider action pursuant to R277-114-3(3) Debbie, please.
Okay. So Chief Audit Executive Debbie Davis, and just a little bit of background on this, because as I guess interim chair of the audit committee, Hall stated, this is the first time with this provision in R277-114 that we're moving forward with this investigation and then the board taking action. So that's why we're providing a little bit of extra explanation. So essentially, a few months ago, internal audit on the public education hotline received some concerns, some significant allegations. Given the nature of those concerns, which fell into both categories 1 and 2 of the oversight framework and 3 and 4 of the oversight framework, and that's important. I'll tell you why in just a moment. But so we had several allegations, and based on the nature of those allegations, it was deemed, hey, we'll kind of loop in board leadership, and they directed the audit committee to kind of, okay, how should we move forward, especially considering the provisions of 114. And 114 essentially says, okay, there's corrective action. It could be formal or informal, or there's the potential with items, allegations of noncompliance in categories 1 and 2 for the audit committee to direct internal audit to investigate. So that is what happened in this case. The allegations that were specific to categories 3 and 4 were referred to the superintendency, and then the allegations related to categories 1 and 2, internal audit performed the investigation, and you have the investigation report in your packet. It includes a response from management. So you get the feel for where they're coming from. They were really good to work with. They definitely acknowledged, okay, there's places for improvement, room to grow there, and they're very interested in the outcome here. So we've done the investigation. The question is, what are the next steps? So based on what is in R277-114, it says, based on the results of an investigation, the board may. So it is to the board, and there's 4 things that it says. It says, take no further action, resolve the issue informally. Number 3 is direct the superintendent to pursue corrective action as described in the rule, or take other action. So you had the motion from the audit committee, which is, hey board, let's figure out what we're going to do. And again, this is precedent setting because this is the first time this has happened. So at that, I don't know if there's other members of the audit committee or if there's a substitute motion or anything, but it's before the board to consider action.
Let's go back to go back to Vice Chair Hall to add any additional comments. Go ahead.
Oh, I believe Director Rasmussen has the suggestion that we'd like to make to the board, and it's the second. I don't know if it's up on the screen or not. It's the second option that we have on there. I don't know if you were able to get that in time, Director Rasmussen, but we do have a recommendation we would like to make out of those 4 suggestions that were given. And then Board Member Bogus has an amendment she'd like to make very quickly to that. I do want to say there's some underlying, there's still an underlying situation that Superintendent Deputy Jones is looking into. So I think this recommendation we want to make to the board will really complement that and help execute that when everything's said and done.
Thank you, Member or Vice Chair Hall. Do we have that recommendation that we can pull on the screen? I know Member Bogus has it with her, but she's not screen sharing. It says number 2 here, and you can see board members at the bottom. It was at the bottom. Let's see if we can find that. So we have a, oh, here we go right here. So that's all right. So the motion, the original motion was that the board consider action pursuant to R277-114-3 (3) D. And I believe that Member Bogus, you're going to make this motion? Please, I'm going to turn time over to you.
I have a substitute motion. I move that the board deems the question costs in the amount of $136,754.30 unallowable and directs the superintendent to pursue corrective action for both findings with Weileman School of Discovery as described in R277-114-4 or R277-114-5, including a repayment for the unallowable paid professional hour costs and a determination of allowable use for the SFY 2025 paid professional hours funds. And I also have an amendment.
So we have a motion that's been stated, a second to go to here. I'm going to go back to the maker of the motion. However, there's an amendment that's coming forth.
I would just move to add a third bullet point that states or any other actions deemed appropriate by the Deputy Superintendent of Operations.
Okay, we have a third bullet point, or any other actions deemed, we want to scroll it up, appropriate
By the Deputy Superintendent of Operations.
by the Deputy Superintendent of Operations. Do we have a second on that? Okay, we have a second. Would you like to speak to that, Member Bogus?
In short, I would just like to give our staff the flexibility they need to finish this out.
Okay, do we have any discussion on this matter? Member Davis?
I would agree with, I'm sorry.
Oh, well. Okay, Member Hall, go ahead, and then we'll have Member Davis.
I'm so sorry, Vice Chair. I just wanted to say I would agree with that 100%.
Thank you. Member Davis?
So this is amending of the substitute motion. What was the motion that came out of committee? Is it possible to scroll up so we can see that? I'm really sorry. I had to get water and then I spilled it, so I had to clean it up so no one would slip. And so I missed the main motion that came out of committee.
Yeah, you can see that there, and it's asking that the board consider action pursuant to those, and so there were options, and then there was a motion made in regards to, I think Vice Chair Hall said option 2, and then this is kind of built off of that.
It may follow up. Why was there not a specific motion that came out of committee? Why was it so open?
Vice Chair Hall, do you want to respond to that, or maybe Debbie? Debbie, why don't you go ahead and respond to that?
Okay, the reason the motion from the audit committee was slightly vague was because, again, this is the first time we're doing this, and the rule doesn't specify kind of how we close out the investigation results. And so at the point when audit committee met, we had not done an exit conference with the client, with the charter school, and they had not had the opportunity to respond. And so the committee was interested in, hey, what will the management response be? And so they said, hey, internal audit, this is the timeline, see if they want an exit conference and a response, and if they want to respond, and if they do, let's work through that process, and then at that point, send us the management response, and then the committee will kind of decide, hey, is there anything we want to bring to the board that would be more specific? And so the substitute motion is really the third option in the 114 section to, hey, let's have the superintendency, do the corrective action, since they have things in process under categories 3 and 4 of the oversight framework. So it kind of split, and then it's coming back together, but that was the circumstance.
So audit members had time to review the response and all that, and then came up and feel comfortable with this.
I won't speak for the audit committee members, but I
Well-
believe so.
Some of them are speaking, so.
Member Lear?
No, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion before the board then, Member Carey, go ahead.
Maybe just a question for clarification. In the top half, it references the superintendent has the ability to address the first two bullet points, but it seems like the third bullet point would be overseen or conducted by the deputy superintendent of operations. Is that understanding correct? Are we involving both the superintendent to address the first two bullet points and then the deputy superintendent to address the third bullet point?
So the use of superintendent with the first two bullets comes specifically from the rule that says essentially the superintendent, like direct staff, the superintendent. So the superintendent being the defined term that could mean staff. And I think as the committee had kind of talked, and because Deputy Superintendent Jones was aware of those other, the superintendent's aware as well, but Deputy Superintendent Jones was looking at it because it was kind of financially related. I won't speak for what the superintendency would do, but I think the Deputy Superintendent of Operations could be handling all three bullets. It's within the definition of superintendent that he could.
So we're using the global definition. Superintendent is anyone on staff?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. So the motion before the board then, if I can get back to or is this it? Is this the motion? Sorry, this is the, so this is what we're putting before the,
Yeah, we were in the middle when you took over. We were in the middle of a vote.
Sorry.
Middle of a motion.
yeah, well, I'm problematic. I apologize. The motion before the board then is that the board add a third bullet point or any other actions deemed appropriate by the Deputy Superintendent of Operations. Member Lear.
Did have a question, I just had to remind myself, and then ask for clarification from the auditors. Remind me how many years that the school was not appropriately doing fulfilling the requirements of the not the professional practices or not the professional payments, but the other. How many years was it that they were misbehaving, is what I'm asking. Because they're asking that they don't have to repay it, and I would never think of taking it back from the teachers, but I think part of our discussion was that possibly there'd be repayment from the school, so.
Okay,
Yes,
so
please.
Kevin John, Deputy Audit Executive, thank you for the opportunity to speak to it. I just want to restate the question, just to be clear. Your question is related to private but public education related activities, right? Not
No,
the paid
it's
professional
the-
funds.
It's the other one. It's the paid
Okay,
professional
paid
funds.
professional funds. All right.
Yeah.
So there was 2 years in question
Okay.
where they used the funds, as they would state, for professional development, but not consistent with the requirements found in state code. The third year in question, state fiscal year 2025, that's one of the reasons we had this short timeline to turn around this investigation, is so that there could be a final conclusion on whether or not they use those funds appropriately as well. So they're in question right now as well, or potentially could be questioned, but they're not determined unallowable based on this current motion. So 2 years that they would have to then
Because this is the amendment to the substitute, and the substitute includes them.
the substitute includes as a second bullet point. Just to be clear, the second bullet point includes that there would be a determination made on whether or not state fiscal year 2025 is allowable. But the the primary is saying the first 2 years are unallowable. So you would make a determination that the first 2 years are unallowable, and therefore they'd have to pay back those years. And the third year, you're saying is or is not questioned right now?
It's TBD, isn't it?
I think it's too deep, yeah, determination of allowable use for fiscal year 2025. So I think, right, there's 3 years in
Thanks.
question. Two, that the book's closed on it.
Okay.
One, obviously they have through the month of June in order to
Okay,
make a
that's what
determination
I-
whether or not they meet the requirements.
Right, I needed that reminder. Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you. The motion then is that the board add a third bullet point or any other actions deemed appropriate by the Deputy Superintendent of Operations. Let's go ahead and vote.
Board Member Hall is a yes.
Thank you, Member Hall. Member Green? One more call from Member Green. Okay, so that passes 12 in favor, 1 in opposition, the no vote coming from Member Carey. So this takes us back to our motion with our substitute motion. Is that right? Oh, here we go. And just for clarity, this I know it said Member Hall. Member Hall worked with Member Bogus. Member Bogus made the motion, even though it says Member Hall substitute motion. It does come from Member Bogus, who is here to speak to that. So the motion before the board now is that the board deem the questioned costs of $136,754.30 unallowable and direct the superintendent to pursue corrective action for both findings with Weilenman School of Discovery as described in R277-114-4 or R277-114-5, including bullet 1, a repayment for the unallowable paid professional hour costs, bullet 2, a determination of allowable use of the SFY 2025 paid professional hour funds, and bullet 3, or any other actions deemed appropriate by the Deputy Superintendent of Operations. Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. And this is just a procedural question. For number, I guess, bullet points, the second bullet point and the third bullet point, after that determination has been made, and should the Deputy Superintendent of Operations deem appropriate additional sanctions, will this board have the opportunity to review those determinations prior to the imposition of any penalties or fines on this school?
Scott, I would ask you that, yeah, and if that's in the rule, I'm not as familiar as I should be. Maybe you are. Scott, please.
So, Chair, subject to any corrections of what I'm about to say, this position would make recommendations to the board on what would be, what this position deems as appropriate corrective actions or whatever is determined. I mean, I can't say that right now, but it wouldn't be a unilateral, well, I'm just going to put you on a payment plan and do that. It would become and do. Now, what I do need help with on this, so I appreciate the question, is whether or not the board would need to vote on what I'm recommending, or I just need to notify you what this position. This is uncharted territory. I've read the rule and the bill file, or the bills and the code and all these several times. So, whether you'd have to ratify my recommendations or do that, I think that is up to you. But I was just going to work through that with board leadership. But before any action would be taken by this position, or really any other position, you would be informed of that, what was determined or things. So, but I don't know if it takes a vote or anything. Yeah, I just have to report to the board what to do it. I wouldn't do it just without your knowledge or anything. I would inform you of what was determined. Does
Chair,
that help?
follow-up?
Follow-up.
So when you say inform you, would that be inform, and when I say you, but does the rule require that board leadership be informed, or that all members of this body be informed?
Yeah. Yeah, so we rate it that we're required to report to the whole board of what we're recommending or that we're going to go move forward with. So,
Chair, if I may, just because it is uncharted, if I may. And again, understanding that this is a road I don't think we've traveled down before at this length, would that reporting be in a setting like this? Would that be an email to us? How do you foresee notifying the entire board of the determinations that have been made?
so my plan was to, or is to do so in a formal memorandum to the board or formal notification to the board saying, as a result of these motions and then the follow-up procedures that we took within, applicable code, law, et cetera, this is what we've deemed as, or this position is deemed as needing to take place or occur or happen. And it would just be an email chain. I would not plan on doing it publicly here, but you would get notified via that route. That was the plan, but again, since this is new, we can modify that however you see fit.
Chair, I
The
have one.
board.
Thank you. I have one more question to Chief Audit Executive Davis.
Sure.
So, Chief Audit Executive Davis, the process that we just heard from Deputy Superintendent Jones, is this extrapolation from R277-114? Where, I guess what I'm asking is, where is this process or these extrapolations coming from in terms of I'm required to give notice but not a vote? I'm going to do that in a memo versus bring it back in public. What rule is this being pulled from, if I may?
So it would be the R277-114-4 or 5. He'd have to look at which one applies based on the nature, I think there's one for contracts and one that's non-contracts, but that would outline the process. I don't know that it specifies, it's a memorandum or an email, but it would include notification, but it is in that rule.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Scott, I see your hand up. I want you to make a comment, but I do want to ask, well, go ahead and comment first, then I have a question for you.
And I would capture this as part of standing operating procedure or a desk manual for this position if it's, identified as being the one by the board, so that there would be documentation and an audit trail on the procedures or processes in there. So by way of an SOP, but this is the first iteration. So that's the plan. Over.
Thank you, Scott. I went and asked, this is why I stepped away, I went and asked the AAGs. Typically we do this in a closed session unless I'm not remembering correctly. We don't often throw this stuff out like in a vote. This is new, this is foreign. And quite frankly, yeah, I'm glad to say an official memorandum, okay, but I'd feel more comfortable if a school is going to go through this process to go into a closed session and talk about that, because this could have some implications on enrollment, and yeah, there might be, and so we'd have to get AAGs involved. I recognize the sensitivity here is all I'm reminding board members of. I guess that's what these comments are, is that this is not something that should just be like, oh yeah, that's an easy call, right? This should be done discreetly and well thought out, and in an environment where we can have free discussion and open discussion and ask those questions and take the proper time, and then come out and make some votes if necessary, however that looks. But yeah, this is obviously, it's been mentioned several times, this is new to all of us. So not speaking for or against this vote, I know I'm wasting time here, but speaking on what that process, maybe we need to, as leadership, as board members, as some conversation, say, what does this look like? Obviously, we'd hope to have the superintendency involved moving forward. So, anyway, thank you. Member Lear.
I had two different separate questions. First of all, I'm looking at this, these consequences, and it seems like on the third bullet, that should be an and, not an or, because it seems like under one, that's one of the things that we're saying yes. Number two, we're saying yes. And then number three, there might be additional consequences.
I would agree. I didn't read it, but I did think it as I was reading it. And the second one should have an and after that, and then the or would be removed, and I think that would satisfy
and.
what the intent of.
Okay, all right.
Is that?
Yes, that's fine. And
Is there
then
any
my second,
opposition to those changes? Okay.
I
Please.
think it's pretty important.
Just point of clarification. So if we change that to, if we remove the or, what you're saying is that those looking into this couldn't make a determination that repayment may not be necessary, right? Like when it's or,
right.
it's, we have the discretion to exonerate. But now what we're saying is, no, you've been found guilty of 1 and 2, and there may be more.
Well,
So that's the way I read that
But-
change, and I would object to it.
well,
Member Lear.
and first of all, it's not guilt because it's not a criminal matter, at least not yet. But they are, yes, the message is the board is saying you are responsible for this repayment, you're responsible for this repayment, and then the third bullet, and there might be other consequences. And that is absolutely the way I was reading it. But I had a related question that there don't seem to be any consequences outlined yet for the violation of the professional activities on school property rules that went on for a number of years, for as far as we know. But that might be something Scott tries to itemize. Are you looking at that too, is what I'm asking?
Debbie threw a hand up super quick. Does that overrule your question to Scott?
No, go ahead,
Okay.
Debbie first, please.
Well, I was just going to say, in the body of that paragraph, it says, direct the superintendent to pursue corrective action for both findings. So in that, it says,
Yes.
look at both findings, but it does allow discretion for that first one, since it's not necessarily monetary. There's not question cost like there was
Right.
with the second one.
That's what I was wondering. So there are not right now any monetary penalties that are proposed. Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
Scott, and I want to recognize that we still have an issue at hand regarding an and/or situation here. So Scott, make a comment, and then we'll go back to the.
So for the good of the group and the good of this particular item, I would call attention to R277114-6, where any entity has an appeal process too. So if if it's the decision to do a protective, or to a particular corrective action plan, there's an appeal process where they can come to the board and say, this position that, is saying this is a thing, they can come to you and appeal that particular notification on the cap. So I believe there's some good processes and procedures. We just need to try the process.
Thank you, Scott. So I'm going to ask who's driving here. Kelsey, will you remove the and after the second bullet point? That one. Nope. Yeah, that one where Elise is. That is how it was read. Now there's a question of and versus or both. So we want to make sure if this is the motion that is on the floor. If there are any amendments, then now is the time to put those forward regarding this matter. Cindy, I see your light is on. Is that regarding this, or is that in for something else? Regarding Scott's comment?
Yeah, regarding the appeal. I just, seems
So,
like,
hold on one second. If somebody will consider the and/or debacle here so that we can tackle that while Cindy's asking her question, that would be helpful.
Just-
Go ahead.
If I'm remembering right, we've done those appeals in executive also, so would an appeal now be done in the public? Is all this going to be in the public now? Is that the new way to go? We're naming schools and doing all of this in the public and appeals?
So there's nothing in the rule that I see or the code or anything that prohibits you as the board from deciding where to do it. So yes, in the past, when we have had appeals and those types of things, we've done them in executive session, but I think that's at your direction and your discretion. I think you could do it in executive session. I mean, I'd have to defer to the attorneys for that, but I don't see any problem with doing it in executive session or not, depending on, this is why I wanted to emphasize that I would make sure, or I will make sure that you're notified of what the potential is and, and then I don't know if they'd appeal it or not, and then you can decide at that point where you want to hear the appeal, I would think, but I think, so does that help answer her question, sir?
I believe it did.
Okay.
Member Lear?
Well, as Debbie C.A. Davis read the recommendation from the audit committee, it did say both issues, which suggests that the last bullet should be an and, because the first two bullets only address the first issue. So I guess an amendment or a proposed amendment's in order. Is that what you're saying?
If there is an amendment, we're happy to entertain it.
I
Or it
would,
could just leave as is. If as is reads that the first two, 1 and 2, and then third says, or any other actions deemed.
which I don't think reflects the body of the recommendation that came from the audit committee, which was there would be consequences for for both violations. Now, somebody can correct me. Did you hear that also from the audit committee? Right. Yes. And bullets 1 and 2 only address 1.
So, yeah, 1 and 2 are in there. Sorry, Carol,
Right.
let me make sure I'm following here. 1 and
Yes.
2 are in there. So those are already going to be pursued.
But they also address just the one concern, the one problem.
I thought it was the two bullets. What do you mean the one problem? We've got
The
two
one,
bullets.
the one problem with the paid, and I forget all the exact terminology, but you guys can, the auditors can more accurately, the one problem with the professional hours that were paid without the appropriate documentation.
Right.
And that's bullets 1 and 2.
1 and 2, yes.
The first bullet being for the first 2 years, the second bullet being for the still undistributed third year.
Okay.
And so there is no penalty listed specifically. Scott could come up with something, but there's no specific penalty listed. So that's why I'm saying that any other actions should address that second problem. And it may be nothing. And maybe his recommendation is there's no way to really compensate the state for that misuse of funds. But it also would allow him to say, here's an appropriate penalty I'm recommending.
Okay, so we're going a little bit backwards here. Do we have a motion? Do we have an amendment?
My motion was to change the or to and, so that he would then have the flexibility, Scott, would have the flexibility to do the first two things that address the concern from the audit committee, but he would also then be able to consider if there's any appropriate penalty for the second issue that the audit committee was concerned about.
So your amendment then would be to, and let's put this in a different color, Kelsey, if we can, add and at the end of the second bullet,
Yes.
and then remove or at the beginning of the
Yes,
third bullet.
that would be my motion.
Okay.
I have to add one other thing.
Speaking to it, or?
No, it's
Okay.
not speaks on a completely different issue. So I'll let that go for now. Go, yes.
So do we have a second for that, to add and remove or? We've got a second from Member Booth. You've spoken to it, Member Lear. Would you like to speak more? She's not even hearing me. Member Carey.
Thanks. I would just speak in opposition. Again, it's interesting because by suggesting that other actions may be deemed appropriate, we're recognizing that this is an ongoing investigation. There's still materials that need to be reviewed and weighed. And despite that, we're saying, but there's no possibility of vindication. And I've never, ever seen an investigation where you can divvy out the punishments before the investigation has concluded, or in this case, the audit. But by adopting this change, this board would be saying exactly that, that despite the fact this investigation is ongoing, we feel pretty confident that we're going to mete out the punishment before that's concluded. I also just want to echo that I'm troubled by the fact that this matter is being discussed out in the open. There's a part of me that believes if this were a district school, we would not be here in public discussing this item. But that since it's a charter, let's bring it out here as an example. And so I would like to know, and I don't know who to direct this to, but I would like to know why we've departed from long-held practice to have this addressed in executive session and conduct this review in public. Is that required in Rule 114?
Not sure if we have somebody who wants to respond to.
Oh, but that was just a mistake, right? Like, you talking about the 20 million there?
I don't think we have, you have a response? Okay, let's get, hold on one second. Member
Be there.
Debbie is going to respond to your question. We've got a couple.
Thank you, Chair.
We've got two things happening from Member Carey, from what I understand. One, he's speaking against the motion, and then he directed a question which Debbie is going to respond to.
Yes, and hopefully this kind of captures both elements that were asked about there. So first, the investigation and the allegations internal audit was assigned to look at is complete, and we exited with the charter school, and they provided a response. So that is done, and in accordance with R277114, it says, based on the results of the investigation, right, the board has those four options, one of them being direct the superintendent to pursue or take corrective action. So it really is a corrective action process based on the investigation that is final. And I think as the audit committee members, please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not recalling, but we discussed the sensitivity of this and can we have this conversation in public or not? But because the investigation was final and based on the verbiage in the board rule that said the board has to decide, it was determined that, well, it didn't seem, and I believe our AAGs were in the audit committee meeting as well, that there was a basis to do this in an executive session, a closed session. So that's why it was pursued the way it was.
If I may.
Please.
Thank you. So at the beginning of this part of our agenda, there was a lot of talk about, well, we looked at it and these were issues that were, a first impression. And because of that, and because seeking more clarity, the decision was made to bring it before the board. That sounds different now because what I'm hearing now is we had to bring it here because we could not discuss this in closed session. So is the reason we're here discussing this in this forum because this was not appropriate for a closed session of this body?
Yeah, if you have a response, great.
I think the discussion on clarity was with the audit committee directing internal audit to pursue an investigation, and it said, do the investigation in accordance with 116, our audit procedures, which we did, but it's silent on what do you do when you're done with the audit procedures. It didn't talk about the reporting, and so that's where we had to seek clarity from the audit committee. Should we do an exit conference? Would you like a response from management? That's where we were seeking clarity, and then the rule is clear that, hey, now this comes to the board based on the results. And I'm super glad that AAG Buse is coming out. She's
Michelle, thank you.
So normally under 114, this is done privately by the superintendent. This process is done by the superintendent's staff. This happens with special ed funds that a district has to end up paying back or a charter school has to end up paying back. At the end of that process, though, those records themselves are public records. But it isn't done in open meeting here. It's done by superintendent's staff.
So I guess, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I guess that asks the question, like, why are we doing this then? Why is this here?
I
Why-
don't know. I can't answer that for you, why this was put on.
How do we put a stop to
this.
this? Do I just say, please vote no and we move on? Like what, I
The
don't
other
know.
concern that I have is that you are supposed to be the appeal body, and you shouldn't be ones making this decision because you were supposed to be the appeal body. And so now you're going to have to do what it says in your rule, that you have to identify another method to review the appeal because you've been so involved in making this decision at this point in time. You're going to need to allow them an opportunity to appeal and probably have to have a hearing officer hear that rather than you as a board hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, and maybe I'm missing what Joe's saying, but I don't like any of this either. And I know, you know, it just, it's new. I don't know if it's supposed to be done this way, but to bring this out and have this debate here is just uncomfortable. So I've got Member Bogus, Member Kelly, and Member Davis.
Are we speaking to the motion?
The motion, I know, we're all over the place, but the motion is simply to add an and or remove an or. Well, Member Bogus has the mic. Let's go for it.
Well, then I would move to saunter for 3 minutes.
Okay, let's do, here's what we need to do there. There's we need to pause for a minute, but we have a time certain at 6:15 to start our executive session so that we can do training. We've got people who are ready to do that here, and then go through that, and then we can come back out. But if we need a few minutes to look over this, and dinner is here as well. I don't know how to pause this. Give me
Technically,
a,
there's a motion on the table, but you could move to table it until tomorrow. You could postpone it till tomorrow. You could postpone it indefinitely. You have a number of options available to the body.
I was going to motion to move this agenda item to the executive session. Is that appropriate? Is that?
that's in order.
Yeah.
Michelle's shaking her head no. Let me get some more mics on here.
And not at this point in time, it doesn't look like it's something that's imminent litigation. So I don't think that it would fit under any of the exceptions under the Open and Public Meetings Act to go into closed session. It's just normally not done publicly.
But we could, there's a motion to saunter. That motion could be turned into a motion to table if necessary. Is that what I'm understanding?
Someone could make a motion to table it.
Then I would move to table this item.
We've got a motion to table this item. Do we have a second?
A second.
A couple seconds. Member Davis, are you speaking to this motion? To table?
I would support tabling. I would support tabling. I just want to, for the public record, a comment was made that if this was a district, we wouldn't be doing this. I just need to look historically. We've had a ton of corrective action and ton of audits, and both districts and charters have been treated the same as far as if the name is withheld or not.
Okay, so,
Just for public awareness.
Member Carey?
Yeah, just for more public awareness. That wasn't said that way. I said there's a part of me that suspects. So please don't sit there and accuse me of saying something that I did not say. Thank you.
Member Davis, are we?
I'm just saying, just historically, it hasn't been done that way, even if some feel that it is this way now. I'm not,
There's a motion to table. It's been seconded. Is there any opposition to tabling this? Member Hall or Member Green?
No.
Oh.
Opposition, thank you.
Thank you for that clarity. And I believe Member Hall had to jump off. He reached his destination. This matter is considered table. We will address this.